Okay, so we are here with Chad Mattix, CEO of Kinettix. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you.
I think what we want to talk about today is a product line of Kinettix called Field Flex and details around what that is. Do you want to give us a little bit of a excerpt of what Field Flex is?
Yeah, sure. So when you look at our Kinettix logo, the X has really three color components to it. So the first has this blue,
Mm-hmm.
and that is our Dispatch One platform. So everything we do is based on that platform for consistency and scale. And then we really deliver services in one of two ways. We have field service, which is an outcome based, a traditional model. So if we go on site, we're going to do all the activities, and for X dollars, we're going to complete this site. The other is Field Flex, and what Field Flex is allowing us just to focus on the field service coordination. So a lot of times when we work with very large organizations, whether it's IT service providers who probably have a field service operation in place today, they get a project, they're bringing on additional partners to scale. A lot of times these partners are buying from the same talent pools, and so what we are doing is buying labor and adding margin on top of it. And so these intermediaries start to make prices very
Inflated.
very inflated. And so FieldFlex says, we're going to give you the resources. We're going to give you coordinators, technical coordinators, CAD operators that are dedicated to that provider, and they will perform on their behalf. So it's like a staff aug model. It is in our Philippine Service Center, which is now just recently SOC 2 certified, and it is a world-class center. So we have biometric access, they have their own PCs, everything we make sure is secured and ready for them, and they act in teams. So they'll be typically clustered together in work pods, and they'll work on things like technical check-in and check-outs. So we have clients that we're literally checking a tech in, they're going to a particular retailer, and maybe their Cisco infrastructure is being updated. We have access to be able to test and support that tech on site. What that gives the service provider, gives our customer, is we're not providing that labor, we're not adding that margin to it. We give them 24/7 support, and it allows them to maintain their process. So they're not bringing in multiple providers with different types of platforms and different types of definitions, and provider A works this way. It allows them to kind of scale to that core.
Yeah, a lot of people, when they hear about this product offering, they'll label it as a BPO. Can you talk about the difference, our model compared to a traditional BPO?
So a BPO would maybe own a particular function, and so they would provide accounting resources or technical resources, and we would help control and optimize that particular action. So maybe like an accounting department, a BPO would take over the AR support or take over the entire operation. Our model is really to integrate with our customers' internal process. They control that. So the efficiencies that are gained, what they want those coordinators to do while they're on site, is up to them. And so really the profile where this fits best is for organizations that are pretty mature in that process and are looking to either drive down the cost of that labor and to provide after-hour support. So because of our location, after-hour support is very easy, but they are operating as that organization. They go through their trainings, they get credentials, they become the employee of ABC company.
So traditional services for field services work has always been including the technician. So all the things you just talked about, from project managers, project coordinators, managing third-party labor, and how that distinction separates the good from the bad out there in the world. Our Field Flex model says, let's strip out the technician component, only because so many of these labor platforms over the years have now become more prolific and everybody has access to that. Doesn't necessarily mean that just because they have access to it, those technicians know what to do and are going to perform well. And those that are signing up for those labor platforms don't necessarily know how to position the technician to be successful, right? And so with the pressures of driving costs down by stripping out that technician, but bringing the expertise of how to cut the PO, cut the work order, vet them properly, do all of the things, collecting on the deliverables, guiding them while they're on site, making sure that their install documents and all of that stuff is up to speed. Uh, I think that gets missed a lot in terms of how much effort it takes behind the scenes to make the technician successful.
I think a lot of times platforms like Work Market and Field Nation will get judged, and people will say there are not good techs on Field Nation, they're not good techs on
Right.
Work Market. And really, the root cause of that is all the different other elements that have to happen to produce a good outcome. So they're looking to these platforms to really deliver the entire. And that's not their mission. Their mission is to provide a known tech. They provide demographics. So, how many times does tech show up on time? Their deliverable submission history. Here's past rate cards, background checks. Like, okay, this tech fits the profile of what we're looking for. So when we think about an outcome, there's 4 things that we think about. So we think about like the scope definition, and that has to be well written, because if we send a tech on site and we just say go fix something, well, that may not be enough to get the outcomes there. So really getting particular in the workflows and the playbooks that are required, making sure the talent development is there. So when you're getting the tech, you got the right skill sets, the right certifications, and give them tools to be prepared to be successful on site. And then it's also building the right pro forma overall for that project. And so is the budget appropriate for the work that needs to be completed? And I think this is another thing that the platforms are good at doing, because you can benchmark and say, of this skill set in this area, what is the average cost of these things that are out there? Well, then the last thing you need, and I think the big missing component part, is good coordination. So you don't just put it into a system and it automatically goes out the right tech with all the right instructions. So you need to have some wrappers around that give you scale. So that's where FieldFlex fits in, that allows the organization to scale. And our cost model is such is that we build a core team. So there's like a baseline team of coordinators or technical coordinators that know the customer, know the end customer very well. And we have some examples where we have teams of 25 people, and they are absolute subject matter experts on the technical infrastructure of store support for their customer. But then there can be these burst moments, like, okay, in the summertime, I need to go out and increase the volume of work that's out there. We can help them with that staffing. We can burst staffing up and down. So we have that variability component, so they can have their core team and then they can flex the staffing based on what's out there, or they can move hours of coverage. So if they want to get stronger in the U.S. support, and then they got, like, I know some of the projects we're working on right now, heavy in after hours, and you got to move that team. So the more you can have this handoff. So the idea is to really have like a 24/7 capability in the organization to support those customers.
I think when you look at our business from a traditional standpoint and including the technician, I think a lot of the work that goes behind the scenes ends up getting lost. I don't think customers quite realize how much effort it takes to manage third party labor, from everything that I just talked about, the vetting, managing it.
Right.
And I think when you strip that part of it out, the technician part, it becomes way more obvious as to what it takes, that sort of lends credibility
Yeah.
to why pricing is what it is, or
Well, and I think in transparency, one of the reasons we have FieldFlex is that we are having these conversations, and we're looking at all the elements it takes to deliver services, and the price is fixed.
Yeah.
But cost is going up.
rising.
So our industry is under extreme margin erosions. There's too many intermediaries between the tech that's on site to who that end customer is. And you and I have talked about this in the past. Like, there was a company that used to have this. They'd call it the N number, and they would count how many layers are between the tech that's on site to the end customer. So if I'm at a Walmart, just as a random example, there could be some scenarios where it might go from the tech to partner A to partner B to the large IT service provider, who then has the engagement and scale with in this case Walmart. So by the time all these things are happening, either we're compressing what we're paying the tech, so now we're at risk because maybe a lower cost could get maybe a lower quality tech or a lower outcome. And then as you look at all the pieces and parts, what it takes to really coordinate these things, the vetting of the text, the validation of the playbooks. If you can have models where text can do things over and over again, that produces better outcomes. And a lot of times we're given these opportunities in a very short period of time. So one of the other benefits of Field Flex is that you can start to have a coordination team of people that become experts to that customer and to that IT service provider. And it'll be a lot easier for them to vet the text, where we might get a new opportunity and we are going to need days or weeks or months to really build subject matter expertise. And so losing that, I think that tech profile or that capacity becomes problematic. And so a lot of these organizations continue to build that staffing model because now they have experts that can help onboard techs and help them get ready for that work.
Let's talk about the flex part of why Flex is named what it is. I think, and I also want to kind of discuss who's the ideal targets for this kind of program.
Yeah, so the spirit behind it is there's a core team, and that core team would allow you to understand the organization just fundamentally. Then the flex comes in where we will have rates that can say, I want to add, another coordinator for a week, a month, a quarter, 6 months, whatever. And then the pricing kind of adjusts that way. So then when the customer's seeing an influx of projects and they know this stuff is coming, they can bring the things in place. The reason the core team is so important is because if we'd stand these teams up and down cold, then it's no different than the problem we just described about the techs. I mean,
Right.
tech goes on site for the first time, they need to learn. But if I have now a core team of 6 or 7 people, they add another person to that team in a service center in the same work pod area, they quickly scale up. So the ideal customer is really someone who has that kind of heavy project or workload. Maybe they're procuring labor on platforms or have a W-2 workforce, and they have a pretty mature process of how that works. Their challenge is just finding the techs at the right time. So they need to go vet them, do the call aheads, or in some cases we're recruiting for weight and measure techs or certain type of certification. So they'll help manage that workflow. And a lot of times we've had projects where they'll start to go in and they're managing labors, like they're in Field Nation, checking in, checking out. Then all of a sudden they're going into a smart sheet for their customers and they're updating and swivel seating this stuff, or they're ordering and checking the status of logistics and making sure those things are on track and helping deal with the exceptions. So all those tasks can really be shaped by that customer. So I think if they have a baseline team and they know they can deliver, and then they're coming traditionally to companies like us to add that capability, instead of adding another group that they have to then route the tickets to, bring them back in their system, you scale what you have already and just do that within your own direct platform and direct access to techs. So I think that maturity is relatively important. And it's changing. A lot of people we used to compete with, a lot of people that maybe we deliver services to as a complete offering, we're breaking these things apart. It's revenue dilutive to us because now there's a monthly fee, but it pales in comparison to the full cost of the project. But we're producing a good, predictable, scalable outcome. We have ability to partner with them in ways that maybe now we're having access and we're participating in engagements we never would have been part of before. But the customer has to be compelled by fact that this team is doing well. So when those teams start to accelerate and they're getting good reviews and the teams can trust them, because at the beginning when they're ramping up, they're saying, every time I go to these people, I'm still doing it myself. This is not helping. Once you kind of break through that kind of threshold, then this becomes, I think, clear to everyone of where we best fit.
I was going to say, do you feel like the initial conversations with new customers where you're pitching this idea and the ideology behind it, is there a reluctance in the beginning, and then they start to warm up to the idea, and then after you show them the reliability and just the kind of quality of people that we're associating to these opportunities, it just continues to grow, does it not?
Yeah, and I think there's concerns about how's your IT infrastructure set up? Are you secured? How is the
Meaning us.
Yeah,
The
meaning
question
like
coming to
yeah.
us.
So you're putting a tech offshore somewhere.
Yep.
Are they your employee? Are they background checked? Are their PCs like so? We use Windows 365. Part of the reason we went through the whole SOC 2 process was to assure
Mm-hmm.
that we're acting and being as secured and practicing the right methods to be able to scale and behave appropriately. But the challenges then are just getting that initial adoption because I think the idea makes sense. It's like, because everyone wants the lowest price possible. And like, well, here's the fact that this is the budget for the tech. We have to have some margin to it. And then we have to do this coordination services. You're already in other projects buying labor probably in similar pools. So why don't you continue to buy that labor, but then work with us and we'll build the team that can allow them to scale. So I think that's the hard part of this is they have to be viewed as being part of the team. So that's the big hesitation. Once we get past that, then these teams really start to scale up because they become part of that organization.
Yeah, and I think our trend for customers that when we finally get over that hurdle and we provide them 1 to maybe 3 people, what have you seen?
Yeah, so
It grows into 15, 20, 30, 50
yeah,
people.
it can
right?
scale if the communication is good. They can see cost improvements. They can see professionalism. Things are out there, and AI is even helping with these things because it's making a lot of those repeatable tasks. Those are going to be fully automated. So it's good communication, 24/7 support, and over time we're going to be not just project coordinators, maybe exception managers. So are these resources capable and understanding? And we have a few people that are doing Cisco support that they know these stores, they know what has to happen, and they're building those relationships. But that takes time. So it's a slower process because it requires trust.
Right.
Just like anything, but this more so. If they put you on site for a traditional field service, you don't do well, they'll say, just go away. Here, they're making a commitment. They're integrating. It's like hiring a new employee. It's exactly like that. So,
And it's interesting too. I mean, we've kind of only been doing this part of it for a few years in comparison to the overall existence of Kinettix. But what's interesting to me is we've not lost a customer when they onboard us in that capacity.
yeah,
And
if the right
in
team,
fact, it does nothing but grow from there.
that's a testament to the team.
Right.
I mean, hiring the right people, getting good training. Some of our customers invest substantially in training these individuals, and that starts to really, reap benefits for all. But yeah, it continues to grow, and it allows us to fit in a way that we're having these conversations about price. Now we can be providing help. So recruiting, knock support. These are other things that we do and have helped with. Is like if organizations are trying to build their talent pools or recruiting for other things, we have recruiters. If I have a knock, I'm an MSP, and maybe I'm looking for after hours and weekend support. Those all start to go through the process. We're working on some projects right now where we're looking at pretty curated skill sets like weight and measure techs. And so instead of us going out and trying to sell that as a service,
Right.
we're going to help that organization recruit the techs, onboard them to their system, and then we're abating that margin stack again. And so it's just helping curate those labor pools and find people out there.
What else would you like to address in terms of Field Flex and where we're going with that?
Yeah, I think we're going to be API and AI driven. Everything we do, price and what field services is a commodity, and Field Flex is a very viable way for us to work with our largest service providers and MSPs to scale. And we're looking for opportunities to demonstrate that. So I think we're willing to do a kind of a crawl, walk, run approach. So one thing we want to be very aware of is that doing the model makes sense. Let's abate margin stacking. Let's when that tech is on site, let's get as direct to the tech as possible and preserve that margin for the provider, or preserve that budget so you can have the right skill set to complete the work. And Field Flex is a really viable way for us to fit in that problem to solve there.
Something else I just thought about that I think is incredibly germane to this discussion is some of our customers may be single-threaded with the labor platform that they're signed up with. You had mentioned a couple names, Field Nation, work market, whatever. If that's the case and we're working under their instance, that puts us in a position of still being single-threaded. And not to disparage any of those names and that they don't have really good coverage or whatever. However, when utilizing Kinettix and the way that we're built, those are just a couple of arrows in our quiver, so to speak. We bring a whole lot of partners to the table that we have. So if we're operating under that instance and there isn't coverage, at least there is the opportunity for us to still be able to draw from our reserves, if you want to call it that, and have the coverage that we're looking for in any given location.
Yeah, we can help with some of those backfills. One area that we are probably most differentiated, a lot of those platforms won't address work that is outside the U.S. or Canada.
Right.
So if they're doing a project and they're looking for labor in other countries, we have that entire network already digitized in our platform as well. And we're thinking about different ways that we can be the key here is to be transparent. What is going into the cost? The way you started this whole conversation off, all the complexity that goes into a field service event, there's a lot happening there. It's not just the tech. And a lot of times we get our projects, we're being priced per hour. There's transition, there's playbook developments, there's a variety, like logistics management, all these things. All that needs to be architected together. And I think as we look at how we communicate what it does in fact take to deliver, that highlights these things, because a lot of times we're negotiating price and it's like, well, based in this number, there's so many things that are there. FieldFlex allows us to pull that component part out, let them worry about labor, but I still think it's critically important. Good outcomes require good PMO, project management coordination, all those best practices. As it scales up, it's imperfect. Every event, and we're under all these SLAs and KPIs,
right?
But these are human beings, that things happen, and not appropriate for the podcast, but I'm sure we can compare all kinds of stories of things that are happening. So those things are what really have to have the wrappers around them to allow them to produce that quality outcome. And so that's why when you think about what does it take to get a tech on site and do it well, it looks easy, but it in fact may not always be.
Well, and every customer has their own nuances. They have their own way of doing things, and the way they practice business, the way they want communicated with. And so it's not just a one-size-fits-all scenario. And I've adopted the ideology and this disclaimer with my customers. It just says, it may look rocky in the very beginning, but let's not hit the panic button too quick, because there is a learning curve that has to happen here. But trust me when I say we've got enough examples of enough in a variety of customers in different settings and different aspects that it will get to the point where you are pleased with what you're receiving from us. And I don't want to mislead and think that, okay, well, is that a year from now before it starts to smooth out? No. It's relatively quick, because given that they are different in their own nuances, there is still a whole lot of similarities. And so we can bypass and get through all of that. It's just those really specific things that we need to explore and get on the same page with each other. And I think the customers finally realize, oh my gosh, yeah, this is really good and can help us scale our business.
It'll be interesting to see over the next year where FieldFlex grows in that adoption, and how organizations, as we get more and more price pressure, it's going to be the resolution to this is to be transparent and to show all the different costs, because all these pieces and parts to produce the outcome, and it does take time to fine tune it, like you say, but that requires professionals, people who've been there, good visibility from the customers, understand their requirements, and building that out. And FieldFlex puts that team directly into their core culture and operating platform. I think that can also have a benefit to help reduce friction of communicating between different groups.
Well, Chad, as always, it's been a pleasure having this conversation with you. I'm glad we were able to disclose the services of FieldFlex that we're offering. And so any of our listeners out there, we appreciate you tuning in. If you feel like this was beneficial and you've got any potential needs, or you could see this being a fit, we invite you to reach out and contact us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.